My next guest that I have for the launch event is a former colleague of mine named Renee Pollins, and I'm going to bring her on. We're going to be talking about alignment, which is an often misunderstood term. It's used a lot. It's become a little bit of a buzzword in the business community, and I would like us to do better than that, than make it just a buzzword. In fact, I'd like it to be a guideline of the team, a commitment of the team, and Renee is going to teach us how to do that. Renee, thank you so much for coming to the launch event.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. You heard about it long before it was actually going to be a thing. And I'm really happy that you're here for the day two of the launch event.
Me
I really
too.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about you. Talk about, kind of your background, what you're currently doing, why you and I are talking about alignment today. Why did that happen?
How did that? Okay. Well, you and I worked in a consulting company for a handful of years, and I learned a whole bunch of skills. And among them, I learned about alignment. I learned how to coach. I learned a lot about leadership, change management, and so on. And I was there for a long time and loved it. And then got to a point where it wasn't the right fit for me anymore. Took some time away to think about life, and in my mid 40s to think about what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I realized that I loved very much of a lot of what I had been doing. I just couldn't do it in the same way it was done before.
Well, I am so glad that you decided that when you grew up, you wanted to do it on your own and do it your way. As entrepreneur to entrepreneur, I am so happy for
Mhm.
you. I know you have an entrepreneur in the same house with you. So
Yep.
I'm glad that you're here with us. And I'm really excited that you're still doing this work, but you're able to do it in your way on your terms.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that that also means that you have the time right now to come and sit with me and talk about this concept.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
alignment gets a lot of usage in the world of business. We talk about, we need to get aligned about this, we need to get aligned about that. Oh, let's get some alignment behind this idea. But I think most of
Mhm.
the time when we talk about alignment, or when we hear it in a business environment, what they mean is, I'm going to say a thing that I want you to do, and then I want all of you to agree with me and do it. That's what I think it typically means.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm suggesting in the 8 commitments of the team something a little bit different, and I think we share a little bit more of what we mean by alignment. So can you talk to us a little bit about what is actually meant by the term alignment on high performing teams?
So I think of alignment as an alignment. It's a process and it's also an outcome that you have. So there's the alignment process in itself, which I'll say a little bit about. And then at the end of it, you have alignment. Um, and just like you said, like I think it's become a buzzword for just go with what I'm saying, just get
Get
aligned.
in line, right?
Yeah, get in line. Yeah. And I've worked with teams where it's like, okay, kind of like we're aligned, and I'm not yet. There's more conversation to have. There's more people to hear from. So the alignment process it's a richer conversation. There's a lot more depth to it. It's not fast usually. Usually it takes time. It's can take hours or it can be kind of spread out over days or weeks. But it's a process where I think people come to a collective decision without it being consensus, where each person is owning that decision, for lack of better words, is owning it. And if nobody else is on board or if things fall apart, they're going to still carry it forward because it's theirs as much as it is anybody else's.
You brought up a couple words there that I think are often bundled in with alignment, and I want to
Mhm.
play a little bit in there. So you talked
Yep.
about consensus,
Yep.
and I think I heard you say, or at least I heard it in my mind, agreement, and
Hmm.
how those are not always the same thing. That actually you can be in alignment and still kind of fervently disagree
Yes.
about the direction that you're going in, and that maybe not everybody is on the same page as far as whether or not that's the right solution, but everybody's on board with owning that that is the direction we are going. Can you talk a little bit about how does that even happen? Because it seems so counter, right? Like we're supposed
Mhm.
to, as everybody gets their vote, we're going to go with the majority, the people in the minority get on board with it. And like, that's how business is done. Right. But that's not how
Yep.
business is done well. What does
Right.
alignment look like on, on the right team? Like, and how does that
Mhm.
differ from agreement?
So, if I can talk like kind of through an example
Yeah,
without a
please do.
one, but so one of the ways that it shows up a lot for me, because I'm not on a team, I'm not leading a team, I work by myself. But when I'm working with an executive team to develop their strategy, that's an alignment process. And in the beginning of it, we might be talking about the mission or the vision or something. We're creating something at a high level. I'm wanting to hear from everybody on the team, which that doesn't always happen, in conversations. Usually you have somebody who dominates the conversation, could be a lovely person, but their voice is dominant and other people don't necessarily give the level of thought and share their viewpoint like they could. So I really want to hear from everybody. So that takes time. And then inevitably, there is somebody who repeatedly chimes in with a differing opinion. It might not be it might not be 180 degrees, but it's enough different that it slows down the agreement or the decision, and you can kind of hear this or see the eye rolling, and people aren't literally, but you can feel it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, if you would just be quiet, we can move on. And I'll say, thank you so much for saying that, because we need to think through that viewpoint as well, because it's going to come up. We're going to run into it. So let's think it through now and then come to a decision. And I'll say at some point, because you don't want to wordsmith everything, right? At some point, it's like we need to be on the same page with the essence of it. Like you said, the direction, right? You may not like every single part of it, but the essence of it is yours as much as it is anybody else's.
I'm really glad you brought up the example you did, because it actually fits perfectly in with what I want to talk with you about with regard to alignment, because alignment comes up several times throughout my book as an important piece of leadership that,
Mhm.
in sitting on the same side of the table, there's a point about aligning your goals with the person you're talking to, alignment as a function of good leadership, et cetera. But within the context of the 8 commitments of the team, you talk about everybody on the team committing to the idea of finding alignment. Why is that important? Why is it necessary that that's in there? I put that as a commitment, and I believe it's important. But if we
Yeah.
were going to make the case for why it's important that everybody commit to alignment, what would that case be?
Well, I think that's going to accelerate you to being a high performing team real fast, because oftentimes in an alignment process, the leader has a very strong commitment to the team getting aligned, and maybe a couple of other people. But not everybody from the onset has a commitment to get aligned. They kind of have to be led there. You know what I mean? No matter how well it's set up. But if you build that in as a foundation, that as a member of this team, you're operating with a commitment for alignment, and here's what it means, and here's what it looks like, your conversations are going to have depth very fast. People are going to be able to disagree in a great, healthy way. Like disagreement is going to be welcomed and encouraged. And you're going to come to the, the direction a lot faster.
And in the absence of alignment, I would imagine what you get is the exact opposite. So you have now a team where there is not a commitment to alignment. What what is the kind of the baseline dysfunction of that? And then what is that potentially um, sort of spiral into at its worst?
Sure. Gosh, the baseline dysfunction is just thinking about the conversation. The leader usually who really wants alignment at some point just gets frustrated and stops trying to get it. And people on the team, not everybody, but enough people on the team are really fine with just saying, yes, that sounds good. That sounds like a great idea. We should do that. And we're going to do it. But they haven't really thought about it, about the implications for themselves, the implications for other people, the future of the company, the strategy. They haven't really thought about it. So when it comes to execution, it's you're like rolling the dice on the execution. It's going to go slower than you want it to go. It's going to veer off course, or it's not going to happen at all.
I'd also imagine that lack of engagement in the possibility of dissent because
Mhm.
you're not, because alignment can require that you can voice those concerns. You have the safety and the trust to be able to do that, knowing
Yes.
that you're not always going to get your way, but that your ideas and your perspective is heard. I would
Right.
imagine that without that dissent, without that critical analysis that some people may bring, and you multiply that across the team, you're actually also sacrificing the possibility of more exceptional results.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Yes, because without getting the dissenting viewpoints, you're you miss out on like the integrity of it, the soundness of it, um, the reliability of it, the quality of it. That's what you miss out on. So the direction that you may take can be a very good direction, but it may not be the best one that you could take at the moment.
If you were working with a new leader, um, brand new in the position, my book is written for new managers, someone who's been dropped into the role or somebody who just got into their first management role, or maybe somebody who's been doing a little bit and they're like, I've been doing this long enough that I can admit I have no idea what I'm doing. It'd be great to have a handbook. So that's what I wrote this for. And I bring up this idea of alignment as a commitment of the team. They're in this position. They're just trying to find their way out. They're trying to find their way forward. How do you start by even creating the conditions where you can have alignment on a team? Like, what are the things that need to already exist? The groundwork and the
Yeah.
foundation you need to lay before you can even get to a point where you can get alignment to even happen.
So at the very base are things like liking each other and respecting each other, getting to know each other at the very base of it. And I mean, so getting to know each other. I don't even know if it's likability, but like getting to know each other in the current roles and who's doing what and hopefully liking each other. The next thing I would say is psychological safety, making really working to instill the psychological safety so that when you then move into having alignment conversations, people know that they can express their opinion and it's going to be heard and valued. May not go in that direction ultimately, but it is considered.
Yes. And I would also imagine that trust has to be an essential part of it as well. Trust
Yes.
that even if and this is part of the psychological safety. I'm contributing this as a bit of an add-on or a build on psychological safety, is that in order to have that psychological safety, you have to trust that you can bring that dissenting opinion. You can disagree, and
Yeah.
that at the same time, the team can trust that even if you're bringing that in, it's not to take the team off course. It's not to drag them down. It's not to make the process slower, but it's to authentically contribute where you feel like you have value, knowing you'll still be willing to align with the rest of
Mhm.
the team as needed.
Yes, yes. And that happens through trial and error as a new manager. It's like all you can do is keep your eyes open and your ears open for dissenting opinions, different points of view, and really listening to it, giving weight to it, real weight, like this is something to genuinely be considered, and honoring it. And that, everybody's watching. Everybody wants to know, like, can they disagree with the boss and is it going to be okay? So that's, yeah, in the beginning, it's really important to set the stage for alignment.
Yeah. And one final question I want to ask you about with regard to alignment and the team, which is, in all of the commitments of the team that I've listed out here, one of the big challenges is getting buy-in,
Hmm.
dealing with the pushback against asking people to actually commit to a thing. And
Yeah.
committing to alignment to some people could sound like giving up your autonomy or giving up your voice. And I,
Uh,
and I think that that's a misconception. Can you speak a little bit about how you would advise leaders to think about the process of getting the commitment of alignment so that it feels like something that people can adopt?
so let's see, you mentioned gaining buy in. And in that process, at the beginning stages of it, I think there's a lot of conversation and getting a lot of input to how people are viewing something. You've got an idea and you want to hear how people are reacting to it, and fold all of that in, massage it all in, include all of it as you're moving forward. So I think I lost my train of thought here, but
No,
gaining
but
buy
so
is
yeah,
part
yeah,
of the
yes.
process.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like what you're saying is that it's almost like you have to start with trying to get alignment on committing to alignment. It's like the
Yeah.
process is the process, is almost like
Mhm.
what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah.
If you want to get alignment for people, like you have to actually go through the process of what you would do to get alignment, hear from other people, gather their input, set a goal in mind where you're all trying to go together, find out
Mm.
what people can all agree to, and then strip away the things that maybe everyone can't align behind and find the thing that they all can and make that what you align behind as your commitment of alignment.
Yes. Yes. And if I can highlight one thing you just said there is you're responding to a goal. This is not a it's not aligning around a topic. It's aligning around a decision or a goal, which means the leader has to say, this is what we're going to seek alignment on, this goal or this decision. So that keeps it also from getting really amorphous.
Yeah, I really love that. So I want to ask you the final question. Thank you so much for coming on and for lending your ideas and your thoughts and your expertise on the topic of alignment and
My
supporting my book
pleasure.
launch. I really appreciate it. So I want to ask you
Absolutely.
the final question, which I've been asking every guest, which is I found that when I came up with the title, The Lovable Leader, it really resonated with me. And I thought it would resonate with others. So when I say lovable leader, can you think of anyone from your present or your past who really comes to mind when you hear that term?
Yeah. I had a boss for a handful of years when I was in my mid 30s, I think, who, and at that time I had two little ones. So I had a 2-year old and a 4-year old, and I was running part of the sales organization and traveling around the world for clients. And it was a lot. I look back, I'm like, that was just crazy. But this boss, I knew that I could always go to her, and she would listen to what I said without like challenge or question or invalidation, like just wanting to hear my thoughts in its kind of pure sense and validating it. Yeah, again, might not have been the direction that we went in, but wanted to hear my thoughts. Um, and the other thing, I have examples, but like nobody else, this boss made it clear that I was important. It sounds like such a basic thing, you
It
know?
does, but it's so uncommon, right?
It's so uncommon. And so one example is I was having a particularly bad day. In fact, I was having a bad time. I was having such a bad day. I quit. I was like, that's it. It was very dramatic. Like left the office. And as I was driving home, I called her to say, leave her a voicemail. FYI, I'm quitting. Because she was with a client. So I knew she wasn't going to pick up and she'd get it later that night. And then she'd probably call me and I, talked to her. She picked up right away. And I was shocked because that was a very taboo thing. You were not allowed to pick up your phone if you were sitting with a client. That client had your like complete attention. So the fact that she picked up in the middle of a meeting gave me a very loud message. And she said, I told her, I was like, listen, I just want you to know I'm quitting. She said, hold on. Can I ask you to not do anything yet? Go home if you're not there already. Hang out. Can you hang out for an hour and then I can call you back and I can talk to you for 15 minutes. And I was like, yeah, sure. And an hour later, she called me. We talked. It's on the one hand, not a big deal, but on the other hand, very clear that she valued me.
There was care there.
There was a lot of care. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
wasn't, it's not, I'm sure, this is not mushy, it's not all hugs and flowers and daisies, but there's a real heart to it.
I dig it. That was a great example. Thank you
Yeah.
again for coming on. I'm going to